right, welcome viewers and listeners to the To the Point program for this morning, and of course I'm yours truly, Gordon Joseph, the innocent one, and I'm joined by a very youthful gentleman, very powerful though, and speaking of none other than the Minister with responsibility for sports, youth, sports, and the culture, the Honorable Ron Redhead. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Vincent. It's a long time since I've been to GBN on the program, but certainly I accept and I'm grateful. And good morning to all the listeners and viewers, both online, radio, and also television.
All right, it's my first time interviewing you too, so I am going to get to know Minister Redhead.
Yes.
Give us a backdrop as to who Minister Ron Redhead really is and why the alignment to the Sports and Culture Ministry. Is it because of your youthfulness? Or?
That certainly has an element, but I also I certainly wasn't the best athlete, but I was a sportsman and still is a sportsman. Cricket, for example, is my favorite sports, and I come through the ranks. I was in school with Kirani James, the likes of these individuals, and so on. So
wow, okay.
yeah, so I came through the ranks there. I do also have family members who are involved in sports and contributed to it in terms of its development and so on. So overall, that was the passion. Again, on the question of youth, serving in the Senate, attending St. George's University, pursuing my first degree as well, gave me an excellent platform, not only to stand on, but coming from the background of understanding youth concerns as well, gave me that question to join and be a part in this specific ministry. And the wisdom of the Prime Minister and his advisors certainly led to the decision.
And how has it been thus far, acting in that top role?
No, it's an excellent opportunity to serve. It's also an opportunity to see the problems that the country face in the various sectors and to apply necessary solutions and to collaborate with stakeholders to solve issues and so on. So it's a working opportunity. Again, the learning curve was not technically steep because we came through a certain degree of training outside of government, so we understood to an extent what some of the challenges were, so it was easy when getting in to apply some of the solutions. I would say that the biggest problem I do honestly have is the slow pace of the public service to act and to action policy decisions, but outside of that, it's been pretty okay.
Okay, and getting into the office of the Minister for Youth, Sports and Culture, what are some of the initiatives or some of the programs that you met there that, in your opinion, needed to be changed? And how have you gone about changing them thus far?
Right. Well, of course, without being too picky, the Imani program was one that we ought to have changed and dealt some improvement with. So far, the process has gone on very well. We are now at the position where we do have some technical people with the technical capacity joining the ministry. We have 3 young women who are going to lead the transition process, 1 of the Imani program and 2 of the reorganizing and rebranding of the Department of Youth. We met some programs, credit to the former administration, there were multiple programs. However, in terms of the overall impact and objective on the country, that was the difficulty. So we've since sought that aspect out, and we are now looking to chart a new course forward in terms of where the directions the program go and how they actually impact the lives of young people.
And looking into the crystal ball, based on the plans and projects that you are going to bring on stream, how does the future look?
No, its future looks excellent. There are a number of things we are doing that is not getting so much of the attention that it requires. I'll give you one example. We are now supporting the need to teach our locals how to make costumes. This is a first. It was spoken about, it was never done. We are now partnering with Lunispark Electrify to lead a developmental program in the franchise, the Kids Soca Muna. Now, for years they have hosted this, but government is now getting involved in a partnership with them to ensure that we are actually training the future soca artists and have a stake in the product that we will market when Carnival comes around. One of the highlights for us, which drew us to endorsing and supporting the program by the brothers, was that they actually have a rubric as to the lyrics. This is something critical because at the young stage, you need to teach the younger artists the quality of lyrics that can take them beyond the shores of Grenada, not just in a block or a blocko or a dance. So the future augurs well in terms of where we are going, in terms of the direction. What we need now is for the structure at the various ministries to fall in line with the government's agenda. Part of the problem is that in inheriting the old way of thinking, you still have structures and elements of the past who are bent on repeating same old, and when you talk transformation, may not see it and may not understand how to perform the transformation because they are accustomed to doing something for many years. So these are some of the concerns that I honestly have as minister, but outside of that, I can say that the process so far is going pretty okay in terms of us implementing programs and projects.
What level of emphasis is being placed on culture? I see already you have a new CEO for Spice Mass Corporation. That's my good boy. I think he's a good guy. Mr. Noel, good morning to you once again. All the kudos to you. What emphasis would be placed on culture? I'm happy with that alignment with Looney Spark and Electrify as it relates to the up and coming youngsters that would move into the art form, soca and so forth. But holistically, what approach?
Yeah, so Carnival in and of itself, we have taken a new look at the operations as to how we are going to really and truly transform the structure around Carnival. What should stakeholders be involved in? How much of annual event we should make Carnival rather than just for a specific period in the year? What are the things we need to do to grow Carnival, not just from a budget standpoint and revenue, but also from its own developmental standpoint, right? What is the role and function? And to that end, I am pleased to announce that we have engaged on an assessment of having only one entity to deal with our cultural activities and have members on the board specifically responsible for certain elements. So for example, we are looking to have only one entity manage all of our cultural aspects, our festivals, etc., to have it in a centralized area so that the coordination that is required. For example, if Karakou is having a massive event, there should be no competing events on mainland and vice versa. These are some of the things that we're looking at. You're still going to have traces of these problems lingering, of course, but over time we are going to get to that point. So, for example, the whole question of the role and function of SMC, because the issue currently exists where SMC is specifically to promote, but it gets all the resources. Absolutely nothing or nothing substantive goes into the development of the product. So SMC is marketing a product that they have no stake in developing. So that's the first major concern that we've seen with the culture. Taking into account Spice Mass is our premium or major carnival event for the year, and we're looking in that direction. We're also looking to add additional celebrations, festivals, etc., as we go throughout the calendar, official festivals. One of the highlights so far that we were engaged in is the discussions ongoing with the diaspora groups to officially recognize the celebration days over there and to recognize it locally as one of our festivals. So for example, the Grenada Day in New York, the Grenada Day in Canada, wherever else it's being celebrated, UK, officially, to meet with them, recognize, and to develop an institutional channel to get our locals to participate in what is going on there and vice versa. So it's going well thus far, and I can say safely that the people are very much energized to see a transformed culture or the structure of culture in Grenada. they're very much enthused by that, and so far it's going well. We're meeting with a number of people. A lot of ideas are being shared. I think now we're going to get to the point where before we engage in any law, we're going to come to the public about the one entity to manage our cultural festivities and activities.
Well, with Carnival around the corner, it gives your administration just a little over a year, all right, 23rd of June to that period this year. But there's a very important point that you raised as it relates to the protection of national events.
Yes.
You know, not having competing events.
Yeah.
Over the years, Carnival or Spice Mass has been plagued with competing private events on national events calendars. Pan, for example, Pan, in my opinion, Pan always suffers because there's always a big event on Panorama Night, and so forth. Within that 1 year period that your administration has been involved, at the helm, are there any steps thus far that will be that are taken or will be taken in time to bring back that measure of security for Panorama and other events?
Not in its entirety for this year. However, the discussion is certainly ongoing in time for next year as we get ready to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Grenada's independence. I can safely tell you, however, we will not be having the major challenges. I don't want to give specifics in terms of the events, but we'll not be having that sort of separate approach where private promoters may be doing things here and there and so on. By the time Carnival launch, any event that operates within the launch and within the time for Carnival should, in my view, I'm saying in my view because I want to limit the SMC from any kind of obligation, because we have not discussed the specifics as issues, but should, in my view, be like, let's say, a private promoter, their shows should take into consideration and should be sensitive to national shows. So this is something that we're trying to work on. I think we can make it work for all. All it requires is discussions, and if you are genuine to ensure that it does not compete and the national event succeeds, then we should all be thinking the same to ensure that it does not have competing events.
Right, that's good. As it relates to, well, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions pertaining to Carnival because from a cultural standpoint, I kind of like that area.
Yes.
One of the concerns, especially from a Calypsonian standpoint, is the need for more support. One, for artists, individual artists, and then the whole aspect of the competition and prize monies and things like that. If we were to look at it comparatively to the region, Grenada seems to be lagging behind as it relates to prize monies and other incentives that would really afford the individual artist to give their best.
Well, that's correct. In my assessment of the situation is that artists in Grenada really are struggling to make ends meet. The majority of them, when they get a chance, they could record. Once they have some capital, they can do activities to, let's say, generate some funds, put on a show, etc. But the majority of them are struggling to make ends meet. But these are the same artists that are making the Carnival what it is, because they are in control of the product. Our view, our position is that the state should play a very basic developmental role for artists. So things like struggling to record, etc., that should not be a problem. And then proper compensation for the winners is something that we have discussed. We've looked at it. And I can tell you that we have no difficulty in increasing, but with that comes the responsibility of our artists to sort of up their game where the lyrics and all these things are concerned. So it's something that we believe we can build a partnership on. The majority of our artists, they are trying their best, but the majority of them are struggling to make ends meet. COVID-19 dealt a severe blow on their economics and their pockets. So we do understand that we need to do more in terms of the rebound that we are promoting, and they can rest assured that we will do so. Majority of them, we speak and we do understand their struggle, and there's light at the end of the tunnel.
That's good news. Finally, before we take a commercial break in the cultural realm, I cannot speak for many other territories regionally, but I know for a fact in Barbados, it's law that if a private promoter is going to bring in a foreign artist, it is law that they must have equal number of local artists. And we see this happening all the time. We bring in promoters bring in a number of foreign acts, and here and there sparsely you might find one or two local artists. Is that something that your ministry is going to look at?
Well, the fact that you raised it is something to look at, but we have not looked at that because, as you mentioned, in Barbados it's law, in Grenada it's not, and therefore our ambits in terms of the reach is very limited. We are not necessarily getting involved in telling private promoters what they ought to be doing. I think they need to see, as part of an association of Grenadian promoters, should see the benefit of promoting our local acts as well, but at the same time ensuring that our local artists is up to a standard. I think that's the responsibility of the state to play that supportive role at the basic level to ensure that they get access to recording studios, etc., etc. So I think it works hand in hand, but we're not going to get involved in telling private promoters, what they should or should not be doing.
All right. Folks, in case you're just joining us, I am speaking with the Minister with responsibility for youth, sports and culture, the Honorable Ron Redhead. And just a note, a programming note, we will be joining our television and radio commentary team as it relates to Intercall Games 2023. We are in day 2. Before we take that break, who are you backing?
Well, as Minster, I can't say, but of course, GBSS, Boca, a number of these schools there. So I wouldn't want to get too. As you notice, I'll wear my tie on the last day.
Okay, all right. Yeah, well, I am a McDonald College boy. So,
yes.
So I'm going up north with the boys, and
right.
I'm staying in Grenville Convent with the girls.
Right. Well, also Tantine Bullets, so high school for the girls.
Folks, we'll take a commercial break. We'll be back after these messages. Don't you go anywhere. This is.
Kerani James blazed the tracks at the National Stadium. Anderson Peters dominated at the same venue. Both were elite athletes before moving on to the international circuit. Grenada, the pursuit of glory has returned as secondary schools are back on the track and in the field. And GBN is here to shine the spotlight on our emerging stars. Join us for the live broadcast of the annual Intercall Games on GBN television. Coverage begins 9 a.m. on March 28th. 3 days, 74 events, 23 schools, 2 champions to be crowned. Republic Bank Inter-Secondary Schools Athletics Championship, March 28th, 29th, and the 30th at the Kerani James Athletic Stadium. GBN, with you, everywhere and anywhere. GBN's broadcast of Republic Bank Intercall is made possible by Guardian General Insurance, Rubis, Get Going, Dasani Water and Powerade, National Lotteries Authority, The Country Cold Store, Shop and Save, Grenada Development Bank, Grenlec, Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority, and Viking Engineering.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to The Point for this morning. Speaking with Minister Ron Redhead, Minister with responsibility for the youth, sport, and the culture. Well, we've got a revised version of it because we've got to cut it short. We've got the Intercol Games, and Minister Redhead, being the minister responsible for that, he has no problems with cutting it short because he wants to go to the stadium. You know, he needs to be there. Minister, before we took the break, we spoke quite a lot about the cultural aspect of your mandate. I want to talk sports. What plans are there in sport in your ministry for the development of sports? And I'm not just talking St. George. Right. I'm talking national.
Throughout,
yeah.
Right. Well, we do have multiple plans ongoing. So one, for example, is the enforcement of the national policy on sports and physical activity throughout the country. We have already identified the 7 parish councils, including having one for Karaku, Pidimatnik. We are in a position now where we have 4 supervisors for facilities. They were just recently given the authorization by cabinet to perform about a month and something ago. And we now have a full assessment on all playing fields, courts, etc. by way of costing for initial or basic renovation and repairs and those for the upgrades. So we're doing the full assessment where that is concerned. Our vision is to see Grenada as a premium sports tourism destination in the Caribbean. That's one. 2, we also want to see us get to the point where Grenada as a nation has a clear strategy for the development of grassroots, community, and schools sporting programs. Because in the past, what normally happened is that private citizens would organize competitions, but it was not a part of a structure of an overall development plan. So one of the things we're doing to ensure that the policy on sports and physical activity is implemented, we initiated a secretariat that has went very well, and they've been compiling new input into what the policy should be on sports and physical activity. And we do accept that since 2011 this policy was worked on, and there are changes that would have to be made. One such change is the incentive package for our national athletes. We have a serious problem in the past. What really occurred was that athletes were promised incentive packages, but no accommodation or accommodations were made to give them that or to make good on the promise. We did not have a structure in place as to say that if an athlete actually achieved X, Y, or Z in terms of the success at a competition, this is what he or she is deserving of. So we're now putting that structure in place. So if you win at one of the regional events, you should be getting X, Y, and Z, and so on. This will be clearly outlined. So it's not going to be no longer a case of just wild promises, but we actually have a structure, a framework as how the athletes will be incentivized as they perform and succeed.
That's interesting because I'm going to look at the just completed 7-1 whooping of our national football team. And one of the cry is that the team did not gel well enough because they did not spend sufficient time together. And the problem behind that is that most of the players, if not all of them, they have to do their daily jobs. 8 to 4, what most of them in the carpentry field, the construction field, and so forth. So even if they get to come to training, when they come, they're already exhausted.
That's the point.
So will there be measures in place to ensure that once you are a national athlete or player or whatever, you are protected?
It is a conversation that is ongoing. One such protection would be that if you're employed with the private sector but you're a national athlete, time off for training for a season will have to be given. So for example, a national footballer should, in my view, be given the time to do the training for the season, whether it's 3-4 months, and still retain his or her daily job. But that's on a side, and that's just to accommodate the realities in Caribbean islands like Grenada. We are not at a level where we can pay athletes, national athletes, on a professional basis so that they do not have to focus on a normal job. They have families to take care of, and they certainly need to generate an income. I think what we need to get to the point of is the partnership required for funding sports. Sports is a very expensive venture, but our policy going forward would be to engage the private sector so that we have a PPP, private-public partnership arrangement, where the funding of national teams are concerned. I think that is the best model we can promote, so to have the local private sector either fully sponsor a team in collaboration with the government of Grenada or Ministry of Sports, etc. But that's the structure that I think could help bolster and will take the athletes a long way. Now, let's be honest. This issue of teams gelling is one that would not be addressed in 2 or 3 months. It has to, and it requires a serious structure. At present, we do not have any jurisdiction over GFA and how it picks its team. I just want to make that point. However, we would certainly encourage, and they have made proposals to the ministry already, seeking support to engage in a long-term partnership of development. Mr. Marlon Glean is on the ball with the technical requirements, and he is aware of what to be done. I think the issue is resources to make it happen, and he did his best. Grenada qualified for the, I think it's the second level of the CONCACAF games, so we made the qualification, whether just barely or not. I think the team did well coming up against a professional team.
Great
right?
USA.
Yeah, right. So, so in my view, it is not about the amount that they scored, but what it comes down to is how well they have played to learn the lessons of the game that they played. Of course, one major lesson is what, as a nation, we are contributing to our national team's development. And this is why I haven't said anything publicly as yet, because I don't think we're doing quite enough. And it's not just a matter of the financial resources, but in terms of the policies that directly benefit our national athletes. We're not doing enough, both from the private sector level and the public, because for them to get the time off, the private sector has to see the importance of sports, right? And again, if some of the athletes are just engaged in construction, you can't get no time off from your construction, especially when you're dealing with deadlines and on a project site, etc. So we have to look at the realistic situation with our athletes.
Minister Redhead, it is a conversation that we need to continue.
Yes.
But due to the urgency of our intercall games coverage, you would understand and you would appreciate the fact that we have to cut this conversation short. But can you promise me something that you'll come back? Let's have an entire...
I'm always available. We can speak about sports only, which is what I came to chat about, but you know how it is.
Yeah, we'll have another conversation at some point in time. Anything you thought you wanted to throw before you
No. Well, as MP, I would just like to encourage the community of not Saint, but Good Hope, Mardi Gras surrounding areas to come out today to my town hall meeting, first town hall meeting after the general elections, to give you an update as to my stewardship and what we are planning for St. George Northeast as a constituency.
Okay, folks, you heard that. All right, this is where we pull the plug on the program for this morning, because we are waiting to join the broadcast teams at the National Stadium for the second day broadcast of the Intercall Games. Minister, thanks for dropping by, and we look forward to another engagement. Folks, this is where we pull the plug on the program. This is where we wrap up for this